Hey, welcome back to Groups. We are in the home stretch
Yeah.
of going through the Sermon on the Mount together and talking about the good life and how Jesus' teachings lead us into the good life or at the end of our lives.
Yes.
They would say, she lived a good life or he lived a good life. Becca, thanks for joining me today. We're talking about judging others. Jesus gets into this fun topic,
Yeah.
which, I mean, we had elections this week.
Mm.
It's like there's a lot. It's just been a lot this
Yeah.
week. But
Still a very practical passage to talk about all these years later.
yeah, and we don't need to go into like a lot of political discussions in our groups or
No.
anything like that. But Jesus has a lot to say about how we judge others or how we go about this. And there's kind of some extremes here of um, taking this extreme stance of like, well, we're not supposed to judge anybody. And so just let people do whatever they want and no accountability. We can't call people out on their stuff because we're not supposed to judge.
Right. So just don't
There's
say anything.
that piece, or there's the other like strong, legalistic, I'm judging you for every single little thing and you need to meet my expectations. So
Right.
there's these extremes, and Jesus is not promoting one extreme or the other. He's helping us find this middle way of how do we walk in the way of love with
Mm.
other people.
Yeah.
So here we
Good
go.
stuff.
Fun stuff, judging others. I know we've probably all been in a situation where we felt judged by somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe what's one thing that you would like people to understand about you before they form an opinion on you?
In the past, I've been called unapproachable. Like if someone just sees me out and about, like just I guess my expressions that I wear just naturally are just not very approachable. But I promise I'm like fairly nice if you talk to me at least most of the time. But it's just like one of those things when someone said it like one time, I started hearing it multiple times, and it's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah.
I remember specifically in high school, the teacher would call for a group project, and oh man, I hate that was the worst. And they're like, "We're gonna do this as a group
Yeah.
project," and my classmates would turn to me and be like, "You're smart. We want you in your group." And I'm like, I'm actually not smart. I'm a C student. Like I don't know what's going on right
Yeah.
now. Any grade that I've ever gotten, I've had to work really, really hard for. And so that was kind of one kind of funny one that would happen a lot
Yeah.
in high school. People would be like, "Oh, I thought you knew what was going on." I'm like, I'm just over here pretending. I
No
don't
pressure.
know. I don't know.
All of our grades are on you.
So that was one that always got me in high school. Um, we can make really quick snap judgments
Yes.
on people.
Yeah.
And what we find through Jesus' teaching is that the good life is slow to judge
Mm.
but quick to love. If we can keep that in mind, we're going to be in a really good space.
Yes.
So as we get into this here, Matthew chapter 7, you want to read this for us?
Yeah. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged.
Okay, so I think a lot of times we stop reading this verse after like the first four words, do not judge others. And we forget all this other stuff that Jesus is talking about here.
Yeah.
That there's this measure. If you have a strong measure and you expect perfection out of people, that's the same way that you're going to be judged. And so got some kind of don'ts that Jesus is laying out here. Don't expect perfection.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't expect perfection. I mean, if you are expecting perfection, especially as someone who's walking in faith, like, what's the point of the cross? If we're all perfect, then what was the whole point? Right?
Yeah, we've got to be people of grace. Give grace. People are going to mess up. People are going to make your day hard. People are going to come and we can still say, hey, like, let's do this different this next time. Or, hey, do you see how maybe that caused us to be late or whatever it is? But we can't expect perfection, and expecting perfection is going to lead us to controlling behaviors. It's going to lead us to harm our relationships with other people. And again, if that's our measure is perfection, then we're going to also be super hard on ourselves too,
Yes.
and live in all this anxiety, fear, and worry that we just don't need
Yeah,
in our
yeah. I mean, you
lives.
see that a lot, I feel like, even in society with, like, the parent and child relationship, like, you
Mm,
put these really high standards on your kids, and that's a lot of pressure,
yeah.
and then you see that a lot of times backfire.
Yeah.
Like,
Very much. Very much. All right. Jesus goes on and he says, "And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, 'Let me help you get that speck out of your eye,' when you can't see past a log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First, get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you'll see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye." I mean, he's that's a very graphic image there,
yeah,
Jesus. Like
yeah.
there's a whole log sticking out of my eye, and I'm trying to reach to take care of the speck in your own eye. What Jesus doesn't say is don't judge. He says take care of your stuff.
Mm,
Don't neglect your own faults. Take care of those things, and then
yeah,
go address the speck that you're seeing in your brother's eye.
yeah. I mean, you can do a very quick little search and find examples of this, like, not happening. Like, and I mean, the Big C Church, not Pineville Church, has had a history of like doing this kind of behavior of harsh judgment on others. And then
Mhm.
eventually truth will always out, and that truth will come out, and you'll see, oh, the person who was
Yeah.
setting this standard wasn't reaching their own standard.
Yeah, and, there's this thing called totem pulling sin, like
Mm,
gossip, that's, like, down here,
mm,
but sexual sin, that's way up
way up
here,
there. Yeah.
and it's just like we can't totem pole sin, we've got to see ourselves for who we are and, work out our salvation with fear and trembling, like Scripture says, in ways that lead us to become more like Jesus.
Mm,
'Cause if we can become more like Jesus, we're gonna experience the good life
mm,
that He offers.
mm.
So, not neglecting our own faults. Then He goes on in verse 6.
Verse 6, don't waste what is holy on people who are unholy. Don't throw your pearls to pigs. They will trample the pearls, then turn and attack you. What a weird verse.
It's almost like He changes subjects, but not really.
No, not really.
So, what He's saying here is don't forget discernment.
Mm,
That there when it does come time, I've dealt with my stuff. I'm
mhm,
not being quick to judge. I've dealt with my own stuff. Now it's time to have this conversation with somebody about, hey, this is where you're missing the mark, or this is your actions are maybe hurting me, or
mm,
whatever it might be. Um, we don't just go around spewing truth and wisdom when it's not ready to be received. We
mm.
have to use discernment and build those relationships in ways that it can actually be heard.
Yeah.
Reminds me of 1 Corinthians 13, where it talks about if I can have all the wisdom in the world, but if I don't have love, I'm just like a noise. I'm just out here making noise like a gong or a cymbal. We've got to use discernment in the ways that we address the issues
Yeah.
around us.
Yeah, you could have dealt with your own speck and be coming from a position of love, and you're wanting to speak truth into this person's life, but that person may not be ready to hear it,
Right.
or I mean, and then it's a waste of time and energy. And I think sometimes that can feel like you're judging them, like, oh, well, I'm not going to waste my time on this person. But that's where it's again it's the discernment. You're not just not going to say anything because you don't want them to think you're judging, but you're not going to just pour on someone
Yeah.
unnecessarily.
Yeah. Okay. And then Jesus kind of wraps up this section here in verse 12. It says, do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that's taught in the law and the prophets. So here's the do is do lead with respect.
Mm,
I think you were talking about that in the last little part about discernment, but we we will be heard if we are treating people as um, capable human beings of making good decisions. And it requires optimism on our part
yeah.
to say, I'm not going to go around and judge people and think everybody's evil and messed up. And if that's my starting point, then I'm going to have a hard time leading with respect. But if I go into all relationships, hey, in general, I believe that people want what's best for themselves and for their families. And if I start there,
Yeah.
That's a great place to start to, and that's treating other people how I would want to be treated. I would want people to treat me as um, somebody who really does want the good for
Yeah.
others.
I mean, from a place of humility, like not a, well, you messed up, like, look what you did. It's a, we've all messed up. This is what I'm seeing, and I love
Hmm.
you, and I want to help you,
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, there's much more respectful ways to approach that. I know as a parent in the heat of
Mhm.
the moment, that is a hard one to remember sometimes.
Yes, especially, my area is preschoolers and under, and I mean, we all lose it. We all blow our tops here and there. There is grace for a reason, thankfully. But remembering this is still a person, this is still a human being who is learning and growing,
Mhm.
and we need to, still treat them with respect and be quick to love.
Yeah, because if we don't, they are going to learn those behaviors of it's okay as an adult to
Mm.
walk around as someone who cannot regulate their own emotions and feelings.
Correct.
So we are, even in our own frustration, we model
Mm.
to them what it looks like to be a loving, respectful person who treats other people the way that they want to be treated.
Yeah, and same on the other end, like, your kids need to be held accountable too. Like,
Yeah.
that's part of loving them, is guiding them, disciplining them, and speaking that truth.
Yeah. And this is a fruit of the spirit called
Yeah.
self control.
Yes.
We can do this.
We can do this with God's help. We can do it.
Yes. At the end of the day, again, the good life is slow to judge, quick to love. I love this verse here. At the end of the day, too, we can remember that God is the judge.
Yep, it's not all on us.
Yeah. So it says, "For the Lord is our judge, our lawgiver and king. He will care for us and he will save us." So I hope that you find some hope and some encouragement in that, particularly this week. And thanks for joining me in this conversation. I hope you guys have a great conversation in your groups of one of these very practical ways that we can live the good life. Have a great week and be